Welcome back to the Reier on YouTube channel. Time once again for Second Helping, the show of choice for fans and followers of the number one league in all of collegiate athletics, the Southeastern Conference. Travis Reier back alongside my great friend and co-host, Mr. Brent Beaird, and we have our show mascot making his usual appearance here to kick off the show. Brent, the
Yes,
one, the only, Chino. Chino is a big fan of the program, I
he
guess.
is. No, he likes to come by and give his contributions. Unfortunately, he's going to the van in the morning
Oh,
to get some fluids and maybe a shot of this and a shot of that. Chino's at 16 years old now, and unfortunately, we're kind of doing our maintenance on him on a daily basis to make sure he eats and drinks plenty.
Chino's like the rest of us. He's day to day. He's day to day at this
Yeah,
point. We're just
thank
all
you.
trying to
Yeah,
make it. And boy, we got a lot to talk about as it relates to the Southeastern Conference. Brent, we've got Tex Titer, one of our loyal viewers here in the live show chat, checking in. Howdy, boys. He offers up. Tex, what's going on, my man? We would love to hear from the rest of you as well as we get going on a live edition of Second Helping. It is a Wednesday night. We are well into the start of the basketball season in the Southeastern Conference. And Brent, we anticipated this being a very deep league. I don't know, and it's still very early. We're 3 or 4 conference games in at this point. I'm not sure I anticipated this league being as deep from a legitimate conference championship contender
yes,
perspective. And just in the last 3 or 4 days, we've seen that come to fruition, especially Tuesday night. I mean, Ole Miss goes into Tuscaloosa, knocks off a top 10 team in the Alabama Crimson Tide. And what about Missouri
yeah,
going into
yeah.
Gainesville and taking out a very good Florida team? Certainly, we expected Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama. I've liked Florida going back to the offseason as sort of an
Hmm.
under the
Hmm.
radar Final Four kind of team. But man, when this thing's all said and done, we might have 5, 6, or 7 teams legitimately in this race throughout.
Yeah, yeah. There's no doubt about that. I mean, in the top 50 in the net rankings, the SEC Trav has 14 teams in the top 50.
Unreal. It
That
really is.
I mean, that's just incredible. And the quad one wins. I mean, Auburn's got and some of this may be a number off, but Auburn's got 7, Bama 4, A&M 4, Florida 4, State has 4, Ole Miss 4, Tennessee 4, Kentucky 4. I'll stop there.
Yeah.
I think you get the point, right?
I think we do. And even tonight, as we do this program, you got Georgia on the road in
Yes,
Knoxville. At the
yes,
half, the Dogs were up a point on the balls.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that kind of league, that's a classic rock fight, it looks like, going on up there in Knoxville tonight, 26-25 at the
Hmm.
half.
Yes,
Also coming up later tonight, Texas and OU. How about that rivalry
yeah,
in the SEC? Going to crank it up in Norman coming up at 10 Eastern, 9
yes,
Central-ish anyway. And then earlier tonight, Vanderbilt moves to 2-2 in the league. South Carolina now at 0-4 in the league. And when you talk about teams that right now are still yearning for that first conference win, what about you got 2-0 for teams in Oklahoma and Texas playing tonight in the
yeah,
league? And what about Cal and the Hogs sitting there
man.
at 0-4 now after the loss to LSU last night?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And to, I mean, open things up.
Yeah.
Arkansas with Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Florida,
Mm.
and then you add that onto it too. So yes, it's been a very difficult start for Coach Cal, but again, I mean, our reality is, I think we're just going to have some of that. I mean, Trav, at some point, what even the leaders in the conference may have what a minimum 5, 6 losses. Is that possible?
Yeah, it's possible. You got Auburn and Ole Miss right now at 4-0 in the league. Auburn very impressive last night without Johnny
Yes.
Broome to just blow out Mississippi State, a solid Mississippi State team. That game played on the Plains. You got Alabama, Kentucky, Missouri at 3-1. Ole Miss is 4-0. Tennessee trying to get to 3-1 tonight
Yeah.
in the league. Florida, as good as that team looks, sitting there at 2-2 now. And it kind of tells you too. You kind of sleepwalk through a home game like Alabama did last night. You
Yeah.
kind of see that one coming a little bit for
Right.
Alabama
Yes.
because you had the 2 road games, then the turnaround from the Saturday night game to a Tuesday early game, even though it was at home against a really good Ole Miss team. And Ole Miss absolutely took care of business at Coleman Coliseum. So, but if you're Alabama, now you go on the road to Lexington,
Really.
to take on a 3-1 Kentucky team in the league. So, just kind of speaks to even the stakes going up more than they had already risen as a league. It's not like this league needed OU and Texas to kind of take another step, but when you do throw the Longhorns and the Sooners into this thing now, it does ratchet it up quite a bit.
Well, and I'll throw another team in there, Trav. I know they've lost to Alabama and Kentucky, and that is Texas A&M.
Yeah.
But how
No
good
Wade
are they?
Taylor.
Yeah. Yes. You read my mind. Trav, how good are they going to be back with Wade Taylor back in the lineup? I think that's going to be really crucial for them. So no way that we can be able to count them out. But this Kentucky team has been impressive. It's obvious Mark Pope has given them kind of some, what would you say, a breath of fresh air,
Yeah.
a new start, and you see them being able to do that. But look, to your point, this is reminding me of football in a little bit in the SEC. That if you're not ready to play and you are not motivated, you can absolutely get beat. And when you got coaches like Chris Beaird of Ole Miss and the just being a defensive savant that he is, Trav, it's been a while since I've seen this. Ole Miss had 70 shots. Bama had 47.
Yep.
Listen, when in basketball, I'd be curious what the equivalent of football would be for that. But when you got that many more shots than your opponent, Trav, it's hard to lose, isn't it?
It is. And I mean, Ole Miss essentially turned Alabama over. So that limited the number of shots that Alabama could get up. And then Alabama was taken to the woodshed on the offensive glass. They couldn't get offensive rebounds. And you heard Nate Oates talk about it post game. If Alabama continues to shoot as poorly from the perimeter as it has to this point, as talented as it is, it's going to get tougher offensively because they have made a living with all those 6'10", 6'11 types on the offensive glass. That has kind of covered for the blemishes that this Alabama team has to this point of the season. It's not a season ender. No need to panic after losing to a really, really good Ole Miss team at home last night. But you go into conference play thinking, you know what, we got to take care of business at home. Try to steal a few on the road. Alabama had won a couple of road games, came back home, and now loses a home game. Makes you feel like you got to replace that with another road win. Maybe that'll be the case for the Crimson Tide at Rupp Arena coming up this Saturday. Brent, we got a lot of college football to talk about. We are there. We are down to 2 teams for the college football playoff national championship. Ohio State, not a surprise. Really good football game in the win over Texas in Dallas and Arlington just a little bit ago. Boy, Sark, Longhorns had their chances. It looked like early in that game, here we go, another fast Ohio State start. This thing could get ugly, but to Texas's credit, kind of settled in. I thought Texas's defense helped the Longhorns sustain its chances through that game. You get down into some red zone situations, Sark on a 2nd and goal calls for a
Woo.
toss into the boundary from the
Yes.
shotgun,
Yes.
and you lose about 5 yards right there, and you don't get in. You don't do what you need to do there in the red zone. That's a call that I'm sure will stick with Sark for a while, but give Ohio State a lot of credit. Made the
Mhm.
plays, made the key plays when the Buckeyes had to. Again, shouldn't be a surprise. Kind of figured that Ohio State throughout this entire season had the most talented roster in college football, but there the Buckeyes are after all the consternation of the home loss to Michigan to cap the regular season. Ryan Day now with another chance made the national championship game in that 2020 season, only to fall to Alabama down in South Florida. But this looks like a more favorable matchup, I would say, this time
Yeah.
with Notre Dame on the other side.
Yeah, I agree with that. Two things here. I'll go in reverse order. Certainly, congratulations to Ohio State. They figured out after the Michigan loss that they can't play people in phone booth. They've got to get the ball to these receivers, particularly Jeremiah Smith. And even when he's doubled and tripled, they've got two other guys who can really make a big difference too. And their defense, these are two of the better defenses as far as in points per game. Notre Dame leads with like 11. Oh, I'm sorry. Ohio State leads with 11, and Notre Dame's right behind them with 14. So that's quite impressive. I did want to also mention before we close the book on Texas, three guys have closed the book on them too. Jaden Blue, their running back, has decided that he is going pro. Kelvin Banks, one of their better linemen, is going pro. Also, and one, Travis, I wanted to mention to you that really came about today. Quinn Ewers makes the definitive decision that on the last day that folks can declare that he is going to the draft. And what also makes this interesting for the conference that we hold near and dear is, and I know you saw this with your eagle eye too, Georgia and Alabama mentioned there's a couple teams, Trav, that at least inquired about one Quinn Ewers and maybe his availability from what we see in some reports.
Yeah, we've heard on a couple different fronts, Alabama linked to Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck,
Yeah.
who we'll talk about more in depth coming up here, which if you're an Alabama fan, a couple things you have to take into account here. Would it surprise me if from the Ewers and Beck camp that was floated out there that
Yeah.
Alabama was interested? No,
Right. Yeah.
it wouldn't. What do you think Alabama's response to that is going to be, especially when you've got a quarterback room that is pretty good still, even with
Mhm.
Jalen Milroe turning pro?
Right.
Ty Simpson's a guy that's waited his turn. He does have
Mhm.
talent. He's a capable guy. He is anticipated to make a strong run as the successor to Milroe, but then you've also got Keelan Russell coming in as a 5-star freshman, maybe the top quarterback prospect for the 2025 recruiting cycle. You just never know for sure how things
No.
and
No.
now we've got representation for college players. So
Yeah.
what are they putting
Yeah.
out there in
Absolutely.
terms of trying to better their situation for a guy? Um, it kind of reminds me of Tyler Van Dyke a couple of years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Remember, he was at Miami and
Oh, yes.
Alabama was interested in bringing him in.
Mhm.
He ended up at Wisconsin. But yeah, it's who knows? It's kind of just open season as we know. Um, I think for Quinn Ewers and some of these guys, unless I had a slam dunk first round grade,
Yeah.
I'd play college football until they wouldn't let me play it anymore.
Absolutely.
Because if there's really 6 million out there for me for
Yeah.
one season guaranteed,
Yeah.
and I don't have that type of guarantee coming from the National Football League, I'm gonna play college football and get my money.
No
And I
doubt.
think that's pretty much what Carson Beck's gonna do
Yes.
at Miami.
Yes.
And I don't think it's the dumbest approach in the world. In
No.
fact, I would say to Jalen Milroe, not that he cares what I think, nor should he, but if I was Jalen Milroe, I'd stay in college and
Yes.
I'd hit the
Yes.
portal. And if
Right.
Alabama wanted to keep me around and wanted to go to that
Mhm.
extent financially to keep me, okay.
Yeah.
But if Michigan State or one of these
Yep.
teams
Yep.
really is interested in throwing 4 to
Mhm.
6 million around for one season, and I don't
Yeah.
have a first round grade
Mhm.
in college football in 2025, baby.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and look, with the, I mean, the money we've heard for Carson Beck is 4 million.
Yeah,
Now, what I've been told, and you probably have too, was that I mean, he basically played at Georgia for around the same amount of money or a little bit less, I guess. So no, I think your point's a really good one. Is and Trav, the other thing is instead of going to the NFL and around the bench,
yeah.
you can get to play another year, right?
Yeah, and yeah, develop more maybe on the field. I think for some guys though, they're just ready to make the jump.
Yes,
And at
yes,
least that used to be the thinking that was a little bit more understandable prior to NIL. But with NIL now, boy, I'd have to have some pretty
yeah,
significant assurances
yes,
before I left some of this cash
no
on the
doubt.
table that maybe some of these guys are leaving. So, what about Carson Beck to Miami? Obviously, the Hurricanes are a ACC program, so we don't really talk about them as much. But it is fascinating to consider Beck with Miami. You figured the Hurricanes would be in the market for a quarterback post Cam Ward. That's kind of the way that's going to work, I think, moving forward for a lot of programs. And they obviously have the cash that they're willing to shell out. They had some ties other than just cash, as we
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
with Carson Beck. But what about Georgia in this aftermath now? What's the sense you get in terms of the response, the reaction to those close to the program? Is it distressing that Carson Beck is not only going to stay in college, but he's going to play elsewhere? Or do you maybe get a sense too that this could ultimately, in some way, prove beneficial to the Bulldogs?
Yeah, let me tie a couple of these together real quick. First of all, for Beck at Miami, I mean, he had some intrigue, I think, with Shannon Dawson's offense, the Miami offensive coordinator that runs some air raid, obviously from Mike Leach. They've got the number 9 transfer portal group. One of those is CJ Daniels from LSU. Now, my understanding is in reports, Cam Ward made about 1.6. Beck's going to make a little over 3 or close to
There
4.
is no way. I know it's in retrospect, but
Yeah,
for me, there is no way Carson Beck should make twice as much as
yeah,
I don't see it.
yeah,
And plus, we're talking about the elbow.
yeah,
On top of
absolutely.
everything else, I mean, we
Yeah,
don't really know
no,
exactly
we
how he's
don't.
gonna respond to that,
Absolutely not.
and you're gonna pay him reportedly, who knows too? We
Yeah,
don't have contracts, a lot access to a lot of that information.
right.
Um, you're gonna pay him twice as much
Yeah,
as Cam
yeah,
Ward? Cam Ward was a
yeah.
hell of a deal then.
It really was. And look, and there's Cam Ward can do things with his arm that a lot of guys can't. And for further SEC ties, uh, Ole Miss analyst William Velachos,
Saw that.
who was in Alabama, um, is also on the Miami staff there. By the way, Miami has a new D coordinator, Corey Heatherman, who came from Minnesota. They may have needed that as much as they needed anything, but to continue and tying this together, Trev, frankly, and look, Kirby never would say this, but the reality is, I think they were ready to really make that move for Gunnar Stockman. I mean, he played pretty well in the playoffs,
Yeah,
frankly. And
yeah,
by the way, Oscar Delp is coming back now,
yeah.
the tight end, even though Trevor, and
Needs
I
to.
don't get this at all, even though Trevor Etienne, he may be just tired of college, um, but he's saying he's going
Nate
into the,
Frazier's taking that thing over, I
sure
think,
he
at
has.
the running back position. So I think for Trevor, it was probably either hit the portal again, or just go ahead and hit the league or
Oh
take your
yeah.
shot. That's what
Yeah.
I'm
Oh
guessing
yeah.
on Trevor
Yeah.
being.
But did you get the same sense, Trav, that I did that they really like Kirby especially really like Stockton. Now he's not being disparaging against Beck. I mean, in fairness, Beck was there 5 years, and anytime you're at school 5 years, you've certainly put your
Yeah.
time in,
Yeah.
right? So and also Beck, and let's be fair about this, Beck was 24-3 as a starter.
Yeah.
And now he does have a girlfriend down there in Hannah Kaviner,
Yeah.
that
Lavender. Yeah.
plays for the basketball team.
Yeah. The Twins. Um, yeah, I think, you know, Gunnar Stockton definitely gives sort of Eric Zeier,
Yeah,
sort of, if you're an
yeah.
old head like we are, maybe Buck Bellew, maybe
Mhm.
Greg Talley, John
Yeah,
Lastinger, if we want to go
yeah.
way, way back. He's a Georgia guy, right?
Mhm.
I I get almost some Stetson Bennett, right?
Yeah. I'm
Kind of
sure,
like a
sure.
Kirby guy. He feels more like a
Yeah,
Kirby guy,
he does.
just like
Absolutely.
Stetson Bennett felt like a Kirby slash Bobo guy.
Yeah, yes.
I get those vibes from Gunnar Stockton. Now, look, you still got to be able to produce. And we talked about this after the loss of Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. We didn't necessarily think that it was a Stockton issue for the
Yeah,
Bulldogs as much in that
right.
game. What whether it's fair or not with Beck moving on, and you talked about the intrigue with the Miami system and some of the concepts that Beck will be moving into with the Hurricanes. That's just more blowback for Mike Bobo too.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah,
True.
moving on from Mike Bobo, it was archaic. The approach wasn't translatable enough to the NFL, all those things. I don't know if I really buy into that, but it doesn't
I
matter.
agree.
That narrative's going to
Right,
get pushed
right.
regardless.
Yes. Yeah, I'm intrigued what you think about these two. Number one, Brett Thorson's coming back, the punter,
That's
who is incredibly valuable.
bigger than
And
people realize. Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, Trev, why did Dominic Lovett not? It really never clicked, did it? He's going into the draft, but boy, he and those Georgia receivers. I'm listen. You know good and well in that football building, receivers catch the ball in 2025 is the
Yeah.
mantra, isn't it?
Yeah. That surprised me with Lovett because I thought even at Missouri, he was a pretty sure handed guy.
Yes,
I thought
yes.
Dylan Bell probably had even more problems catching
Oh,
the football than Dom Lovett did.
really?
The tight
Yes,
ends, the drop off from Brock Bowers to Delp and Lucky and the rest of those guys wasn't anticipated to be as significant as it ended up being. And that's
yes.
probably not fair to Delp and Lucky because Brock
Hmm.
Bowers is a freak. I mean,
Yeah,
they just don't
right.
make them like Brock Bowers. It was probably simple minded to think, oh yeah, Delp and Lucky, they'll be Bowerish. That
Yeah.
wasn't going to happen.
No,
So
no.
no, it's going to be a very interesting offseason for the Georgia
Mhm,
Bulldogs. Um, they did sort of backfill via the transfer portal at those
mhm.
wide receiver spots. I'm interested in Zach Branch in that offense.
Yes,
Is he going to
yes.
get enough opportunities
Mhm.
in that offense? I think there's some ways to use Zach Branch that maybe Lincoln Riley and that offense at SC didn't do enough of, like hand him the football, get it to him on jets, things like that more than what Oklahoma tried to do. Plus, Branch in the return game can be a
Mhm.
real factor there.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not the biggest Carson Beck guy on the face of the
mhm.
planet.
Yeah.
I've made the comp to sort of a Dollar General Trevor Lawrence with Carson Beck, and
Mhm.
now coming off this injury, I've got even more sort of concerns for him. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's fascinating to see what this offense can be with Stockton, and then also, you start seeing these way too early top 25s,
Yeah,
top
yeah,
10s already. We haven't even
right.
had the national championship game
Really?
that's Monday night. It looks like a lot of the same teams are going to be
Mhm.
mentioned. I think Alabama, you're starting to see though after that 9-4. not as much top 3 or top 5. You're seeing Alabama down towards the bottom of the top 10 and maybe even just on the outside looking in. And it just sort of speaks to, again, how big this year 2 is going to be for Kalen DeBoer. And it does start right there at the quarterback position.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's no doubt about that, and I think I'm with you. I think that's a pretty healthy quarterback room. I still think Ty Simpson. I mean, he certainly he's had his share of offensive coordinators, but I mean, he knows the system. I think they can trust him in a lot of ways. So I think they've got some pretty good stair steps. Look, whoever's going to be quarterback, Jeremy Bernard coming back, huge, isn't it? As
Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, yeah,
and Jaden Roberts certainly on the offensive line. Jam Miller coming back. Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, I think some of the depth is a question mark right now. But Trav, for Bama, as far as their starters coming back, I can certainly see why people look at them to be a top 10 football team.
A top 10, but I think if you outline these same guys coming back, and we didn't even talk about the defense, which is returning like 8 starters.
Yes.
And was perceived to be the better side of the football by the end of the season for this Alabama team, this latest Alabama team. I think if you were talking about these same type of returnees with Nick Saban as the head coach, they'd be top 3, top 5.
Oh, absolutely.
And instead, they're sort of 8 to 10-ish, it looks like, in some of those situations. And again, defensively with Kane Womack and, the good news that they've continued to get on the defensive side of the ball, Deontay Lawson coming back after his tough injury late in the regular season, Justin Jefferson coming back at the inside linebacker position, even with Malachi Moore moving on, even with Jahad Campbell moving on, Tim Smith. That's a good-looking frontline group of defensive players. I think they still need that real war daddy type on that defensive front, between the defensive front and the edge positions. Maybe that's LT Overton in 2025. Maybe Tim Keenan's still got some room to grow there as an interior guy. They still need those type of difference makers. I think corner, they're going to be exceptional. They're going to be exceptional. I think safety with Keon Sabb coming back, Bray Hubbard, Zay Mincy, a young player. They get that situation at that Husky, that nickel corner figured out exactly the way they want it. Yeah, I mean, the pieces are in place. They're going to lose, I think, a specialist or 2 in special teams. But even with Milroe moving on at the quarterback position, should be plenty of star power. And that quarterback situation is going to be fascinating to watch play out, because maybe Kalen DeBoer was kind of honored that previous situation too much and didn't open it up enough. I don't get the sense that's going to be the situation this spring and beyond. I think Kalen DeBoer doesn't owe any of these guys anything.
No.
Get the best guy.
That's right.
To fit what you want to be moving forward. Because if you don't do it now, there's no guarantee that you're going to get to try to do it again in a year or 2.
No, because he won't be around in a year or 2 if that continues.
That would surprise me if he was a 2 or 3 and out, because I think Kalen DeBoer is a good football coach. But I'm just saying, get it the way you want it right now. And that goes for every aspect of the program. That's the thing I've consistently implored here in the last month or so, because you can't keep kicking the can down the road. This is your baby. And you need to run it the way you need to run it. If it's not going to be an offense that is huge on the running back position, then you better get the damn quarterback position right. Soon.
And whoever the quarterback is needs to be a lot more accurate too. And a little footnote to all this: the Florida State Seminoles announced today that they weren't having a spring game because of their construction on the stadium. Which I'm sure, if folks don't know now, they will in the next few months as they look at schedules. One of the more intriguing openers is Bama going to Tallahassee to play Florida State to open the season in a in a game that will have a lot of mystery for both these teams.
Yeah. Alabama finished the season in Tampa. Will open the season 2025 in Tallahassee, and kind of getting back to Beck and kind of tying that into Florida State.
Yeah.
I get a little DJU vibes from Beck with Miami. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it won't work out that way, but we'll see how it goes down there in South Florida. So, quarterback, as we continue with that thing, Brent, such a big part of it. You're seeing lists already for 2025
Yes.
top quarterbacks in the
Right.
SEC first team. I'll tell you what, I'm a little surprised I don't see more of DJ Lagway on
Yeah.
some of those lists, the Florida quarterback, because of how vital he was to that Gator football team in 2024. Now, look, I get it. You can look around the Southeastern Conference and think, Nico maybe at Tennessee, Lenora Sellers now at South Carolina going to get a lot of that love as well. But if it's possible, it feels like maybe DJ Lagway is going to fly under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, maybe so. And I've seen one list, Trav, where he's number 2.
Yeah.
Garrett Nussmeier is number 1. Lenore Sellers is 3. Arch Manning.
Going to be a lot of Arch hype. Oof.
Oh yeah, it would be unbelievable. And Trav, our guy Diego Pavia, number 5. How about that?
Should be number 1. I mean, he should be number 1. But
Agree.
they're going to continue to. And that makes it, hates that opponents of Vanderbilt, because that just feeds that dude's fire, the little engine that could. It from a quarterback perspective, it's going to be a unique season. Alabama obviously undergoing some change. How does Hugh get that deal going there at Auburn? Either with the high school avenue or the transfer option. And then, we talk about it too, returning head coaches to the Southeastern Conference. We talked about this a little bit before the show. If we had gone in to the season and I told you, look, on January 15th of 2025, there is going to have been no turnover at the head coach level in the Southeastern Conference, I think I could have got some pretty good bets coming in on that wouldn't be the case, Brent.
Yeah. Oh, I listen, because Sam Pittman of Arkansas and Billy Napier of Florida were among the top 2 in all those lists, weren't
Even
they?
Beamer a little bit.
Yeah.
Clark Lee. I mean, yeah. Do you think, Brent, though, that some of this, I mean, look, Pittman, I guess, did enough, made a bowl game. And that offense took a big step with Bobby Petrino back in Fayetteville. I think a lot of folks out there like Travis Williams on the defensive side of the ball. But still, it was a 6-6 season. In some ways, it felt like some coaches did just enough, right?
Yeah.
Billy Napier, Lagway, a big part of that. Clark Lee, Diego Pavia. You want to know how much quarterbacks mean, man. Taylon Green and what he was able to do at Arkansas this season. I mean, you can almost connect those guys to their coaches still being employed, I think.
Oh, yeah. Listen, 2 things really caught my eye. And listen, this is the first one's at Missouri, is Jalen Catlon, who you and I raved about at Arkansas. Went to UNLV, and Trav, now he's at Missouri.
I guess he reunited with Barry Odom out there at UNLV, right?
Yeah.
Because Odom was at Arkansas with him, and then Odom went to UNLV. Yes. But now he's on the move again, you're telling me?
Yeah, he's at Missouri.
Why not? Right?
But Trav,
he's a good player. He was a good player before the injuries.
Yes. Yeah. And by the way, because he redshirted and because of COVID, Trav, this is season number 7 coming up, by the way.
It's
and another one that caught my attention, and a couple of things about the Tennessee Vols I want to mention. First of all, my understanding is Tim Banks, their D coordinator, who frankly quietly has done a really pretty good job for them. He was a Brian Broyles Award finalist in years past. He is going to be signing an extension. His name was mentioned. Trev, wasn't it Clemson? His
They
name
ended up
came up.
hiring Tom Allen from Penn
They did.
State.
They sure did. Also, in another, what I thought, I'm because of my old school roots, I've always been interested in the radio play-by-play guys. But Bob Kessling, longtime Tennessee play-by-play
Yeah.
guy, leaving after basketball season, and Mike Keith, who is
Yeah.
legendary up in Knoxville, and help me on this.
He
I
was a
believe was
play-by-play guy for the Titans.
that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
thank you.
leaving the Titans to go
Yeah,
to Tennessee, which look, that's a big time job. I mean, you're talking about obviously the
yes,
great John Ward is what I kind of connect with before even
right,
Kessling.
right.
So it's a significant job, don't get me wrong, but it also maybe speaks to how bad the Titans are too. But I
Yeah.
think for Keith, it resonated with him that
Oh yeah,
specific job.
yeah, yes.
It would be like um, if Chris Stewart was the play guy for the Falcons
Mm-hmm.
and the Alabama play-by-play job came open.
Yeah.
It'd be that kind of maybe
Sure.
comparison for a guy like that in that business.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah.
You know
Yes.
what's crazy though about those jobs? Remember Gene Deckerhoff doing the Bucks and Florida
Yes.
State
Yes.
simultaneously? How
Yes.
that? I mean, and he wasn't flying around on G5s, to go from Florida State Saturday night
Yeah.
game to a 1:00 kickoff for the Bucks on
Yeah.
Sunday. That's
Yeah.
crazy to think about. And Deckerhoff did that for a long
He
time,
did.
as I recall.
He did. Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
obviously he's retired from Florida State. I think he still does the Bucks at this point. And by the way, one more Tennessee note here, real quick. Now Tennessee plays Syracuse and Atlanta to open the season, and this week Syracuse quarterback Kyle McCord declaring for the NFL draft. So I'm we talked a few minutes ago about Tim Banks, the D coordinator. He's probably glad he's not having to deal with Kyle McCord, Trav.
Yeah. That's boy, we're getting into some SEC ACC matchups for week 1 of the 2025 season when we look at it from that perspective. But yeah, it's that time of year.
Yeah.
We still have roster movement to consider. We still have a national championship game. I need to ask you about that. What was your level of surprise, or were you, from the Notre Dame perspective, that the Irish was able to get past Penn State in that semifinal? I liked Penn State in that game. I liked Ohio State against Texas. Just watching Notre Dame and Penn State in that game, it just felt like Penn State had the better roster.
Yes.
But boy,
Yes.
Drew Aller, just some critical mistakes. And Riley Leonard wasn't great either.
No.
But give Riley Leonard credit for Notre Dame in that second half. He produced in a way that really helped his team overcome his mistakes.
Listen, the thing that really I thought Notre Dame would win that game based on this, and this is something you and I have circled for years. Notre Dame leads the nation in takeaways.
They do.
32 of them, by the way, which I still think is amazing. And I'll tell you what, the jury was out with me on Marcus Freeman early on, but
Yeah.
when you win 9 in your first year, 10 in your second, and 14 so far in your third year, that's trending up, would you say?
Yeah, and you start getting linked to jobs like the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
Like we've seen from Marcus Freeman, and he's done a tremendous job. It's another matchup. This almost feels to me with Notre Dame, Ohio State, kind of like Notre Dame, Alabama from the 2012 season, the last time we saw Notre Dame in a national championship game. But look, Notre Dame knows who they are, and they seem to have a knack for getting the kind of games they want which is what
Yeah.
they're going to have to do with Ohio State, because if Ohio State drags Notre Dame into the deep end, which means a lot of points,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't like that for Notre
No.
Dame. But if it's another one of these sort of 20-17 deals, there's something to be said for being comfortable and calloused in those kind of games that makes you comfortable and able to win them, even
Yeah.
though the rosters and paper may tell us that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing what Al Golden has done? And Trev, to me,
Mhm.
Al doesn't even look like the way he looked at Miami, does he?
Total makeover. Yeah,
Yeah.
no more
Yeah.
ties. No
No.
more ties for
No.
Al. Yeah.
But he's done a great job with that defense, and one of the stats that I'm still chuckling at: teams that make the national championship game earn 20 million for their conference. Well, Notre Dame, Travis, gets to keep all that 20
Yeah.
million
Yeah.
because
That's some
you
nice
know
tithing. That's
it
nice
is,
tithing
isn't it?
for Notre Dame.
It,
That goes nice in the tray there.
yeah, it does.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, and look, again, you talked about it though, the takeaway aspect with that Notre Dame defense. And I know Will Howard's been great,
Yeah.
but I know there's another Will Howard that will throw the football to the other team on
Yes.
occasion. So I like Ohio State to win this game Monday night in Atlanta, Georgia. What about you? Who do you got in the game?
I agree. I think that, I think they will too. Frankly, yeah, without a doubt. Um, uh, Listen, 13 of the 22 offensive and defensive starters for Ohio State, they were 4 or 5 stars who signed in either 20, 21, or 22. Trev, is this one of the last teams we'll ever see, maybe, that has that many high school or players that came to the team through the normal
Yeah,
being recruited through
grassroots.
the high school ranks?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to sustain. You got to think.
Yes.
That's going to be tough to sustain. Let me ask you this, Brent, before we get out of here on the latest edition of Second Helping. Give me a letter grade now that the football season is over for the Southeastern Conference, just for the league in 2024. Came up short. Won't play for a national championship, as we know. Had one team in the semifinals in newcomer Texas. Give me a letter grade for SEC football, Brent, in 2024.
Yeah, there's no way to give them an A, but I will give them credit for. I mean, they won 8 bowl games. Probably should have won about 3 more, and they still got 3 teams into the playoff. Although Greg Sankey was certainly aiming for 4. I mean, I would say B minus,
Yeah,
something like that. Is that fair?
I think it is. I'd probably go B minus C plus. Satisfactory, but it kind of speaks to the standard that the league has set,
Yeah.
especially over the last 20 years or so.
Hmm.
Um, when you almost talk about it in terms of disappointment, which I wouldn't go that far to call it that. You didn't have a Heisman Trophy finalist.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have a team in the national championship game. Um, so, yeah, relative to what we've seen in the last couple of decades, it wasn't the best season. It wasn't a disappointment. So I'm with you. I'm probably right there in that sort of B minus C plus range for the Southeastern Conference. Brent, what else you got for us before we get out of here on a Wednesday night?
Yeah. A couple last things and a question. One, certainly, Bill McCartney passed away at 84, former Colorado coach. People forget McCartney won a national title, splitting it with Georgia Tech in 1990. And on a more local note, a guy that you and I are very appreciative of. Folks may not know the name Jay Solomon, but Jay Solomon basically started sports radio in Jacksonville back in the early 90s, voice of the JU Dolphins, actually called some Miami Hurricane football games early on. We called attention because over the weekend was the anniversary of his death. Jay's been gone for 27 years, but Trav, you remember guys who helped you get started in the business, and Jay was one of those guys where he was willing to give guys like you and I a chance. And I, for one, I know you are too, will always be grateful for that.
Yeah, Jay, just one of the most gracious guys you would ever meet and willing to help and just a good person in a business that, well, it hasn't always been loaded with them.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
very
yeah,
appreciative to the late great J.U. Solomon. I
yeah,
mean, think about voices of programs, things like Jacksonville University, things like that.
yes.
Jay was that person and always will be.
He will be. And the final thing for me, Trev, pops and birthday gifts were. Did he
Yeah.
did he come through this year?
Yeah, I need to check on that. Nana just had her 75th
Yeah,
birthday.
yeah.
So it better have been something better than Skittles this time around. I mean, 75,
Yeah.
that's one of those milestone numbers. Now
Yes.
we kind of do these birthday get-togethers. We got so many in the family, thankfully.
Really.
We're grateful for
Yeah.
that. That we'll just do like a 20-person get together at a restaurant or somewhere. So we got that coming up, but I will check on that. I
Yes.
needed to check on that with Nana. I did wish her a happy birthday the other day. I didn't
Yes.
get an update on Pops, so
Okay.
I'll work on that and report back here on second helping. Brent, as always, a lot of fun with you. We certainly appreciate the viewers checking in with us on this Wednesday evening. If you haven't already subscribed to Reier on YouTube, we hope you'll take the time right now, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. You'll be alerted to our shows as they drop here on the channel. And a thumbs up, a like is always appreciated as well. Brent, always a lot of fun, always insightful from you. Look forward to doing it again real soon.
Me too, bud. Take care.
For Brent Beaird, Travis Reier, thanking you once again for joining us right here on Second Helping on the Reier on YouTube channel. Until next time, so long, everybody.